And I'm sure you're wondering who we are. We are Lifestyle Education and Resource Services in collaboration with Innovative Workforce Development. We're glad to have you here this evening. We will be hearing from our panelists and having discussions regarding the importance of local elections and your participation. Please feel free to ask questions, make comments, get involved in our conversation today. I want to introduce to you who you'll be sharing information with and hearing from today. We have a panel of awesome panelists who will be sharing with us, and start with brief introductions of each panelist. Our first panelist is Dr. Adelia J. She is the Executive Director of the Business Ministerial Alliance. She's a professor with the Division of Education at Tougaloo College, contributing writer with the Mississippi Link, and founder of The Fabulous Life and the Fabulous Life Ministries. She's had a long history of public service and knows the responsibilities of an elected leader. We'll hear more about that during the conversation. Next on our panel is Dr. Akil Kelfani. He is a change agent, motivational speaker, ambassador, and professor, as well as an author. He has a plethora of experiences with urban issues and global educational initiatives. Dr. Kelfani has given addresses at the United Nations on several occasions. He has received the national recognition for community and public service work and is internationally recognized. We're looking forward to hearing from you this evening, Dr. Kelfani. And next on our panel is Dr. Marco Robinson. He's a native of Mississippi. He's an author with writings on the Black experience, especially in terms of the American South and throughout the African diaspora. He is an assistant professor of history at Prairie View A&M University. Dr. Robinson is a leader in the promotion of social justice and gender equality. Next on our panel, we have Mr. Kelvin Stewart. He is the alderman of Ward 1 in the city of Rolling Fork, Mississippi. He's a teacher for the Mississippi Achievement School District in Yazoo City, Mississippi. And he is a member of the Poor People's Campaign. He is an advocate for equality and equity, as well as honest, just, and fair representation of our community members. We're looking forward to hearing about his experiences. Next on our panel is Ms. Carol Redfield Mims. She is a curriculum specialist, a restorative justice practitioner, and is currently working as a library media specialist and ELL coordinator in Central Mississippi. Ms. Redfield Mims formerly worked in Yazoo City Public Schools and was the former UNISERV director of the Mississippi Association of Educators. She is a strong advocate and will contribute greatly to our conversation this evening. Next on our panel is our collaborating organization, Innovative Workforce Development. Its founder, Ms. Coretta Frazier, is the CEO of Innovative Workforce Development and Professional Management Solutions. She specializes in human resource, staffing, and consulting. She has a keen understanding of business analysis, brand management, vendor management, and partner negotiation, as well as its application for community capacity building. Tonight, our facilitator will be Dr. Roshonda Harris Allen. Our facilitator is an associate professor of education, director of professional programs, and a grantee for the Institute of Modern Day Slavery at Tougaloo College. She serves on the leadership team for the NACCE Black Caucus, and Dr. Allen serves on the leadership team there and is on the board of directors of Lifestyle Education Resource Services, better known as LERS. She is a level leader for the Girl Scouts, a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She's a member of Junior Auxiliary of Byram Terry, the Mississippi Association of Education, the Poor People's Campaign, and the Higher Education Literacy Council. Yes, we have a vast expanse of experience on board tonight. Jump on board. We are looking forward to engaging answers to the questions we have listed here. And right now, I will be turning it over to Dr. Allen. Dr. Allen, go ahead and pick it up for us.
So, hello, everyone. So glad that you all are here with us this evening. I'm going to stop sharing my screen in just one moment, but I want everyone to see what the guiding questions are and what's going to help us with leading this conversation. So as we look at questions 1, 2, and 3, why do local elections matter? Why is your vote crucial to the state, county, city, and/or ward you reside in? How can we uplift communities to register and vote in their local election? So these are the 3 questions that will be guiding our conversation this evening. So with that being said, let's start with question number 1, and anyone can answer. Why do local elections matter?
Start with that first question.
Yes, please, Ms. Carol.
I guess during this crisis, we have all figured out that the people elect for the local government matters. You know, sometimes we don't pay attention to it because we are bombarded by the national elections, that we don't often go vote for local elections. But voting on local election, this impacts your daily living experience, everything from the road condition, infrastructure to schools. Since I'm an educator, I'm going to stick right there with schools. A good portion of the local taxes that we do pay in goes to our community school. And the Board of Education decide, and they have a big say on how they will spend those funds on the behalf of our children and our educators. We got to get back to education first. So simply put, it starts with me for education, going all the way from the prison to pipeline. I can look at how education has failed us so many years, and it's continued to fail us every year until we stop and resolve it. Those local elections matters. And that's what I have to say on that part.
Thank you. Anyone else like to jump in?
Yeah, I'll say a few words about it. First of all, I want to thank you all for inviting me here. I'm excited to participate in this discussion and to share what thoughts I might have on this important topic. So let me just give a little background about myself. I've run for both city council here in West Orange, New Jersey, and I recently ran for U.S. Congress. And I even participated some in the county electoral process. And so my analysis of these different points of entry is that the local election is very much tied to where people sit in their everyday lives. And so that when you think about how people participate in society locally, and then you begin to navigate the laws, the rules, the regulations in terms of how they then can participate in the larger governmental structure, right? The municipal, county, state, and federal, that the things that happen at the federal and at the other levels are a lot of times driven by what's going on the local level. And so if we want to really ensure that we have representation, we can actually use our municipal engagement to facilitate our discussions about what we want to happen on a county and state level, especially on the county level, because those county roads, for instance, run through our municipalities, right? And so that the county has, sometimes residents get confused as to what's a county responsibility and what's a municipal responsibility. And so then having those kinds of dialogues and understanding the nuances therein is how we can get things that we need done, right? So for instance, CDBG money, right? Community Development Block Grants come from oftentimes from the federal government, but then it's given to the state, which gives it to the county, then who gives it to the municipality. So if you don't understand when you want money from the federal government, the process of being able to get access to those dollars, that it has to go through these different levels, then the people who are elected locally, if they don't have your best interest at heart, when they get the money, they're directing it to somebody else's community. So that's another important reason why we've got to make sure that the folks who are there and representing us in those local electoral bodies, right, the legislative and the executive branches, that they have the best interest of the people at heart.
Thank you for that answer. Did anyone else want to chime in? Calvin, Marco, Adelia, Stephanie?
I will chime in real quick. Once again, thanks for being invited to this panel. Being a local elected official, I would just like to concur with what was just said. It really starts with us. We make decisions on your everyday life in the community that you live. So you must have somebody that is elected to be your voice. I mean, I serve a ward, but it's not about my voice, it's about my district's voice. I'm elected to represent the people, and it's not about what per se Calvin wants, but it's what the district wants, and it's about the needs of the city. Even though I serve a ward, I make decisions on everybody in the city, but most definitely, I think local elected officials have to start learning that we are a voice for the people and not ourselves.
Yes, I will answer number one. Thank you all for having me also. I'm really happy to be here. You know, I had a friend that shared with me a couple of years ago that she wasn't into politics. While I understand what she means, I think it is an uninformed statement to make because, like Carol said, politics affect everything in our daily lives. All politics are local. And so we have to show up every time the polls are open for us to vote. And that means in every level of government, whether it's a municipal election, a state election, or a federal election. All elections matter. These people decide what resources and how many resources are coming into your community. And you have a right as a citizen of this United States to participate in that civil duty. And also with that civil duty includes showing up for jury duty. A lot of us are, I would say, afraid to show up. We're afraid that they may arrest us or anything could happen. But you are there to act as a voice for people that look like us. And if people that look like us never show up to participate on jury duties, then we will continue to see the prisons overcrowded and other things like that. So all of these things are connected, and we have to do our part and participate in local elections.
I'd like to thank Stephanie and also Rashonda for this opportunity to speak with you and others across this United States of America. It's important for us to recognize on the eve of this election that we just came out of that those important municipalities across the South were important to the win that we just experienced. And so the importance of local politics, whether that be through referenda, initiatives, etc., we cannot afford not to participate. As we see when tax hikes come up in terms of property taxes in your neighborhood, you need to be there on the front lines talking about that. That has a profound impact on the level of education that your kids are going to get. But more importantly, when you look at your mortgage, how much your mortgage is going to be. And so you have to weigh all of these things out. And so I say that the comment that the sister made about all politics are local, the most profound impact that you make through the political channels happen in the area that you reside in. I mean, you want to say that what you just did had an impact on Washington, but in turn that trickles down to where you live at, with the direct people that you represent you in your ward, that represent you in your county, that represent you in your senatorial district, your representative district, all the way up the ladder to back to Washington. And so if you're not watching on all those levels and making sure that the political process, one, is protected, but two, resources and other things from the federal government are trickling down to your neighborhood, to your community, then that's a travesty. And I want to say that we have to keep our eyes on the prize moving forward, because we lost a step these past 2 electoral cycles in terms of other people being more astute, going out and voting, staying vigilant in terms of their political participation. And we kind of watch and we're very hesitant, thinking, well, Obama's gone, so what are we gonna do? So you still have to be engaged and civically active to make sure that you are a change agent, that you are impacting positive change in your community.
Thank you all for that. I want to go back to something a few of you all said. I'm going to start with Dr. Carthen. She mentioned jury duty. I don't know if you all are familiar with the case, Rodney Reed, I believe that's his name. And if you heard anything about his jury, he had a jury that was completely Caucasian. And we all know Rodney Reed was Black. So do you all remember anything about that case? Well, it was about a gentleman who was accused of killing a young lady, I want to say 1997, 1996, something like that. And of course, he went to trial and he got convicted of murder. And now they're fighting for his life because he was on death row for quite so many years, from then until just recently, maybe 2007, 2019. But I say that because where is the evidence that said he killed this young lady? When they got the, I guess they brought in some specialists to look at the crime scenes, and they could not find any solid or any hard evidence. But he was charged of murder by an all-white jury. So it goes back to what Dr. Carthen says. We must go to jury duty. We can't run from it. It has to be people sitting in the jury that look like us. Everyone can't look the same. So thank you, Dr. Carthen, for mentioning that. And if you have time, please look that case up, Rodney Reed. It's a very good case. It's been going on since either 96 or 97, and it's still a lot of information out there today. He is still trying to be free. So if you have time, please look that up. Carol, thank you for all the information you gave us about how voting helps with the education system. You know, that's one thing that people don't realize. Yeah, we vote for our president, but how does voting for our president versus voting for our local government affect our educational system? So we have to think about that as people within our communities. And I want everybody to know that's out there listening. Everybody on this call tonight, everyone on this panel has their foot in education one way or another. So we know what it means when we say we need you to go out and vote, because it will help with our educational system. It will help with early childhood education. And believe it or not, it will help with higher ed. So I want you all to know that. I want you all to realize that. I want you all to just think about it real hard. So we're going to move on to the next question. And some of you all may have answered some of this, but I'm going to say it anyway, and we can just talk about it in more depth. Why is your voice crucial to the state, county, city, and/or ward you reside in? And I say this and I ask this question because we have a lot of people who live in Mississippi, but they may vote in Michigan. Or we have people who live in Biloxi, but they vote in Jackson. So why does this matter?
I'd like to go back to a point that Dr. Carthen made about, the jury duty, but it's even more important than that with the selection of district attorneys. I think that in many cases, whether it's elected or whether they're appointed, we have to be very vigilant about who picks. But you look at the case of, like, say, for instance, with Breonna Taylor, who ended up ultimately over that case and decided not to prosecute. Ahmaud Arbery, in his case, the district attorney decided to bring them in, but the types of charges that they brought them in on, that person is very critical to justice in our communities. And so participate on the juries is part of that, but you have to even go further than that and make sure that we impact those individuals who are at that district attorney position. And so we need to make sure that they know that we're watching as a community, and you will be voted out if you do not ensure that justice occurs. And so that's very important.
I would like to add to that, Dr. Harris, before you move on any further. When we talk about voting, we normally, especially African Americans, we vote on people that we see out there. I could just listen to a commercial, I'll vote him. And I've seen people do this before. I know all of you all have. I think one person runs off of the same commercial for the last 10 years and has won, just because that name is out there. But I encourage you all to go and look and watch, because people behaviors matter. Just look at our president. He's racist. He's a sexist. He's homophobic. Now, imagine that we have these same type of people, if we won't get up and vote, into our local elections. Do you think they're voting on our behalf? Or do you think they're voting on the way that they see the world? So the reason why voting is important, you got to have somebody at there with the mindset is that we all can grow together. And if you're not doing what it is, we need to get the mindset of moving you out so we can get someone in to do the job. So behaviors matter, you guys. And just like she was saying, for a judge, a local judge, I mean, they're harder sometimes on our children than ever, but it comes from their belief systems. So when we are interviewing these people and voting for them people, we have to make sure they have some background, some information to back up what character they say they are, because we don't want them to get in office and just fall through and don't do anything for the community that voted them in. Thank you.
I definitely want to speak to what we know about as community members, what we know versus what we believe. I remember growing up in an inner city area, and it was popular to get out of jury duty. Sometimes we have, as communities, we have self-defeating behaviors that I grew up believing it wasn't a good idea. Just to be honest, just wasn't a good idea to go to jury duty, play crazy, and get out of it. Just those belief systems that have to be broken and replaced with truth and understanding. So as community members, let's break it down for them. It is a massive myth that the only time to vote is when it's time to vote for president. And people have that seared in their minds, like, well, I don't know those local people. I'm like, but you've got to get out. We have to get up and do some work. We understand, and we must understand as a community, the only way to overcome opposition or oppression is to get up, get an understanding, and get active. And that's why we're having these platforms, is that, that we need to know who's our voice. And we can have a voice. There's enough of us for people to have a voice, and we can vote those voices in. But we need everyone's participation, because there's always going to be a push and pull. Someone said, well, politics is a joke. I've heard of that. I'm like, if you think it's a joke, then it is up to you to change the joke into something that's worthwhile and solid. It is up to us members to change how we see or how we are being led. So it's important to know where you are, who's on your block, who's representing your block. I know about colors representing the block, but who are your leaders? Political leaders representing your block. Who's representing your community? Who's representing your city? And it goes from there. We have to be educated, and we have to be active. We have to get into action. We can't sit back. If we sit back, someone said about keeping the eye on the prize. Well, guess what? The prize is moving. And we need to get a hold of that prize again, and we're going to have to be active, proactive. And the only way to be proactive, don't be afraid. to get an understanding. Don't be afraid to find out, what does municipal mean? Don't be afraid to find out, what are the political positions that are available in my city, in my neighborhood? What are the roles? Why are they important? These are questions that we should not as a people be ashamed to ask. Don't know, please ask. Please get an understanding. Don't be ashamed. There are people that are willing and available to help you gain an understanding so that your voice too can count.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One of the things I wanted to add, two things. One might be a little pushing the envelope for some of us, but I think we have to recognize also that everybody that looks like us is not for us, right? And sometimes we get comfortable with just saying, "Oh, I want a Black person in office," or "I want this person or that person in office," and we get a whole bunch of people in office who don't do anything for us. And we've got to, raise the question and raise the bar. And so, for instance, that's one of the reasons why I ran offline, right? So I ran offline, even though I've been a Democrat all my life. I ran against the incumbent in the general election to win, but also to raise the consciousness of the people to say that we the things that we are fighting for are not, and that we need and that we are owed are not being presented to us and provided to us in a way that we need strong, powerful voices to fight for. And so, we have to think that not just being, we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and get to the place where we challenge people in their positions and move the needle on the debate. And so voting off the line, encouraging people to think off the line, vote off the line is an important part of that, I would say. To the extent that we've got to recognize that it's not just about if the person is a Democrat, Republican, or whatever. It's about what does that person stand for, as my sister Bundle was just saying, that we've got to make sure that if that person, regardless of how they got there, if they are not doing the work in the interest of the people, loudly and vociferously, then we've got to raise questions about it and make sure that we bring somebody new in, and that we also, one of the things that we fail in our community is that we fail to have succession plans. We want to be in office, die in office. We want to be in the church, die in church. We want to be the professor, die in the professorship. We want to be the CEO, die as the CEO. And then every time that happens, what comes after us is that everything falls apart. And that's tired. It needs to come to an end. And we need to start training up some young folks to come in and take our positions, training some young folks to be better than us and not think that we got to be we're the best thing, the only thing that could ever happen.
Dr. Akil, can I call you Dr. Akil? I know it's improper not to call you by your last name, but I'm glad you said that. Someone once said to me one day, and many of you may have heard this story before, but I was talking to a gentleman that lives in my neighborhood, and he said, you know what you have to do? Or you know what we should do, I shall say. We should train people who want to be in this role. And like you said, instead of waiting until someone dies in that position, and then you have people running who may not know what all that role entails, you have people who have been trained to be put in that role. And you start when they're young. He said to me, we start when they're exiting high school, going into college, or whenever they just show an interest. We groom them, we help them, we give them the tools that's necessary to run for office. So if that day comes when they have the opportunity to do it, they'll be ready. They'll have the resources, and it wouldn't put, and I want to say their particular political affiliation, it won't put them in a bind, regardless if it's Democratic, Republican, or Independent. You won't be put in a bind because you have people who have been groomed to take on these certain positions. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because there is other people out there thinking the same way as you, Doc. It's a lot of people out there thinking like that, but it's not enough. You understand what I'm saying? It's really not enough. And then you have some people who are just scared. You know, they say, oh, I want to run, but I don't think I'm going to win. Well, how about you just prepare yourself and run? I've heard that from many people. You know, is it really about failure? Is running for office really about failure, or is it about changing and making a difference? You know, we have to look at it with new eyes or with different eyes. So thank you for that. Did anyone else want to comment on that last question?
I do, but it's a question that I'm posing. When I started to research the questions on yesterday, my main goal is school board, because I know that that's the link between the classrooms and the community. And I don't see that happening in a lot of places. There's no link between the classrooms and the community that the school serves. So that's one of my main issues. But I want to ask one of the gentlemen on the panel, the difference between the mayor's power and the city council power. That seems to be something that is confusing for the majority. So tell me what power the mayor holds versus the power of the city councilman.
I guess that's for me, Carol.
Anybody who can add
Well,
any information.
I'll take a shot at it. In most municipalities in Mississippi, it is a weak form, strong board, weak mayor, strong board. And I serve on a weak mayor, strong board, meaning that the board has the power, most of it, the mayor he does have executive orders on a couple of things he can do, and he does have veto power, which means he can veto an action by the board, but we can override him with, in my case, it's 5 of us, as long as 4 of us vote, that gives that percentage. And I think that percentage is 67%. But that is the problem. Like you say, some mayors think that they are the chief. But most places, the mayor does have day-to-day, he's over the day-to-day operations. And when that means that the department heads most of the time answer to the mayor. But for the most part, just in general, elected officials, and I want to go back to the doctor that works at Prairie View. I like what he said about when people get in office, sometimes they get stagnated and they think that the position is just theirs. I've been blessed to be in office for 16 years, but I've been fighting to find somebody else young like me that at 26 had that itch to get into it. And now being in year 16, you know, I'm still saying now I'm getting old in the position, but still being 43, who's gonna take my place? Who's gonna take some of my counterparts' place? My county board, the average age is 67. So you got 5 people at the age of 67, where are the young people gonna come, you know? So it's just one of the things that we gotta get out and start getting our younger people involved and make sure their voices are heard, their concerns are heard, and we're working for them. That's basically, but Carol, like you said, with the mayor, you have some, I think Jackson is I don't want to say Jackson, but some places in Mississippi do have a strong mayor form. And if the mayor has a strong form, he has a little bit more power than his board.
Yeah, in New Jersey, we have some similar things. I used to run the Urban Issues Institute here at Essex County College in New Jersey. And one of the things that we, that, you know, in terms of that, there's over 500 municipalities in New Jersey. And you have some strong mayors, some weak mayors, but then you have a lot of other configurations in terms of that. One of the things that the obviously the city council is the legislative branch, right? And they are the ones that draft the laws, and then the executive is the one that signs them. And as Mr. Stewart said, that then they also then he or she would be the one who also oversees the daily operations of the municipality. But then also they put a budget for it, but the city council is the one that approves or disapproves the budget. So that there's, in terms of the checks and balance, whether or not the money is granted for the things that the mayor or the executive, there's different titles in different municipalities here, that person wants, then there may or may not be the opportunity to govern in the way in which that person wants to, because they don't have the budget according to what was approved or disapproved by the municipal council. So those are some of the other things in terms of how things operate in terms of the relationship between the two. And I think we have to make sure that we continue to realize that it's equally important to vote for, know who the council people are, to go to those council meetings, whether they're virtual or face-to-face. Show up at town council and make your voice heard, right? Go to those meetings, the Board of Ed meetings, go to them, and you don't have to be in office to influence change. I'm starting an organization, and we're going to be doing the whole thing is about lobbying for grassroots issues. And so, you know, we've got to figure out how do we push those issues forward so that legislators are actually addressing the issues of the people as opposed to those issues of corporations. And that's what we get stuck at. We get stuck at corporate and contractual dollars being the tune of the day, as opposed to the things that the people push forward and need, whether it's environmental or educational or housing, all those kinds of things that don't get attended to the way the people want them to. But we've got to realize that our voice in government doesn't end with elections. It's a continuous process, and we've got to continue to be engaged while those elected officials, even the ones that we wanted got elected, we got to push them to make sure they continue to do the work that we want them to do.
I just have one more question for you, Dr. Akil. This question is kind of stagnant, but where can we find the information? If the board is having a meeting, where's that board meeting notes? Especially when they sign off property or selling property, you know, your school property,
Right.
dollars. What are they doing with it? Do they have on there how they're budgeting and giving it out to these contractors? Where is that information found?
So it's two ways to get that information. One is that they always have minutes. By law, they have to have minutes. And the minutes will tell you where things went. And then they actually have various resolutions that they've passed. And those resolutions tell you who did what and where it went. Now that they're very technical sometimes. And so the language in them becomes difficult for people to navigate through. But, you know, you have to find somebody who can help you to navigate the language in them. And then the last piece is if they don't want to give it to you, you can always do what they call an OPRA request, an open public records request. And when you do an OPRA request, by law, they have to give it to you. Now they may stall and do this, that, and the other, but ultimately you're going to get the information through an OPRA request because it's required by law.
Thank you so much. And public, I just need for you to understand that that information is supposed to be public, and you at any time are supposed to be able to view it so you can understand who you elected and what they're doing for you on day-to-day basis. You need to know this information. I will try to post up the screen. I'm not on my regular computer tonight, but I will go back on the live version and post those pages where you can find the information. For a lot of counties and cities, it's not there. So I don't know how to get in touch with it, but he just told you a good way to find that information. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let me just add one piece to that. And the other person you can get all that information from who has it may or may not be willing to give it to you, but is the county and the municipal clerk. That's the person who is the record keeper for all official documents, the county and municipal and clerk.
I just want to say that this is why we have to be involved in politics every day. We just can't wait until election time. And I think Renee Shakespeare said it best. When you vote for a candidate, you are hiring them to represent you and your community. You are the CEO in this case. And so, and when you, in contrast, when you don't vote for a candidate, you are saying, I don't want to be involved in the hiring process. So I also want to remind people that only about 20% of the community actually show up and vote in local elections. In this last, I think it was Ward 2 election that we had, only about 18 or 19% of the registered voters actually showed up and vote. So you only have a small percentage of the population that's actually deciding who represents them. They are the ones that's actually hiring these people. And so we have to do a better job. And I also want to make sure that we know that our election commissioners are very important, probably the most important people that we elect, followed by who sits on the school board.
Thank you.
I
Thank
like
you
to
for that.
resound. I like to resound a comment that she just made in terms of voter apathy. I have now been living in Houston, Texas for about 5 years. I moved here in 2016. And when I was living in DeSoto County, Mississippi, which is located right below Memphis, the last county on I-55 heading north towards Tennessee, there were some upwards of 90 to 100,000 voters that were registered. And only about 1/4 of those voters voted during local elections. And so I want you to see that big disparity in terms of the actual rolls, the numbers, and the actual people who showed up. And so this is a national issue. I mean, you think about the numbers, the astronomical numbers that came out for the presidential election, but then when you look at the local elections, you got about 1/4 of the people who are voting. And so that's the most important election. You know, those local elections determine who's on the electoral college. And so I want you to think about the importance of that. We often forget that by, you know, these national ad campaigns that we see for presidential elections. You know, the data shows that people turn out for presidential elections more than they do for the local municipal elections. And so this conversation is very timely in terms of bringing awareness to the general public about participating. I like to resound something else that Dr. Kalfani made a comment about in terms of voting in your own interest. This doesn't have a political party face on it. It doesn't have a person face on it. You need to vote on the issues in the good of the community. And that's the bottom line. And I think that oftentimes, particularly in communities of color, we've gave loyalty to political institutions that have not shown loyalty back to us. That's all the way across the line. And I think that there's a new day. There was a lot of stuff over Ice Cube's connected with Trump or others connected with Trump. It doesn't matter. Whatever entity is working for your best interest in your community, that's who you need to be with. And I think that we really sold ourselves out in terms of just saying that, you know, my mother voted this, my auntie and my grandma, they voted this, and that you need to vote for your best interest. That's the bottom line. That's illogical for you as a human being, as a active, proactive citizen in a democracy to vote for a party blindly. It just does not work to be an informed citizenry to vote against your own interests. It just does not work like that. And we've had to re-ingrain and retrain ourselves to think differently on this, period. I think that there's a different type of voter that's being raised up as a result of this last cycle. And we have to continue to keep that momentum in terms of people actually understanding the process on the local level, on the state level, and on the federal level. And that first starts off voting your own community's interests.
You know, and I just want to encourage everyone who's listening to vote where they reside. If I live in Byram, I need to vote in Byram. If I live in Byram in Ward 1, I need to go to the precinct I'm supposed to go to vote. I'm not going to go all the way to Clinton or Madison or do a mail-in ballot for a prior address, you know, that I may have. I'm going to vote where I reside. So I want to just thank you all for that. But, you know, I want to also be able to give our listeners some information on how to uplift communities to register and vote for their own local elections. What can we do to uplift these communities? Because I know of a community right now, and there's quite a few of them, like you all said, where you get 20% turnout, 10% turnout, and some of them are less than that. I've seen cities that have 15, 20,000 people and only 300 go vote for the local election. So how can we uplift these communities?
While I was living in DeSoto County, I worked for the DeSoto County African American history symposium. This was a local group, nonpartisan group, in which we held local candidate debates, meet the candidates nights, meet and greets. And so as a result of that, connecting the candidates to the community, it's hard to hold somebody accountable for something you don't even know what their platform is, right? You know, oftentimes if you don't go to these local meet and greets or these debates, you don't know what people believe in, because, you know, you think about on their websites, that's all just filler until you actually hear somebody's heart and what they believe in and what type of vision they have and how they project the direction of the community. You don't hear that. And so we hosted meet and greets there. And so looking at those numbers that I mentioned earlier, more people took a more vested interest in their communities. I strongly believe as a result of our efforts, Walls, Mississippi has their first African-American mayor in the history of the city. There's a Black female representative out of that Horn Lake district in DeSoto County as a result of those efforts of us bringing people's awareness and hosting those community meet and greets with the candidates and giving them a forum to come and to hear the candidates' platforms and what they believed in, and did they match the interests of the community and forwarding progress for everyone in their community. And so I think, first of all, you have to get the people, the residents organized. That's first and foremost, because if the residents are not on board, it doesn't matter who's leading them, they're not gonna show an interest in it anyway. And so you got to get them engaged in the process. And that process is first vetting those candidates, period. They have to be vetted. And so there's one thing letting somebody fly by and just voting for them, but we actually need to hear them and what they believe in and what their plans are. I'll give you some examples of how we let a lot of those car manufacturers come to Mississippi, and a lot of these county commissions let them come there, have a 10-year tax-free holiday. So who benefited from that 10-year tax-free holiday, and they just gave employment? But you got other states like Georgia there. If you're gonna come here, you're not gonna get the tax-free holiday, but you're gonna pay taxes, and you gotta employ X number of people from certain municipalities. And so again, when we go to the negotiation table for these things, we've got to have the best amongst us that are going to sincerely represent the interests of the community. And so I think that's so important. It starts there, organizing residents first. That's where the buck stops. And if you can get the residents on board, you can move forward.
I think that Kelvin Stewart had a comment, and Rashonda, and then Carol Redfield said a comment.
Oh, I was just going to say the comment I had was back on the other issue where the numbers are low in municipality elections. That is something that you do see across the nation and most definitely here, but I'm going to tell you what it is. People of color that have been privileged to hold office, as myself, we have let our people down, and they have lost the faith in the political system, and they're at an all-time low that they just don't care. And when I say they don't care, is no matter what we do, it's like we've just failed. Just got to say it that way. I mean, I hate to say this. I mean, I do a good job, but overall we failed them. And when you fail someone, just imagine waiting and just believing and hoping and praying, and it just never happens. It's like we have failed them. And you know, I don't run under a party affiliation. I've been an independent my whole career. I work well with Democrats. I work well with Republicans. But our people, I hate to say it this way, but our people are just at an all-time low, and they're sick and fed of politicians. And one of the reasons that our soon-to-be former president was able to win is because the American people was tired of the normal politician, and they wanted to try something different. And of course, it didn't work, I don't guess, because we have a president-elect now. But I mean, you know, getting back to the local area, I hear about I like what Robertson said about debates, but here in my community, they won't debate. Nobody will debate. It's hard. I mean, I love to debate, but you can't get candidates to want to debate. I mean, you know how my community knows what goes on in our meetings now? No one would come to the meetings. I had to take the meetings to them. I started going live on Facebook just so they could see, and you would see I think a lot of people from here in my community may be on tonight because I told them they are liking to hear what they have to do to change the scope here in my community now. They're fired up. So one thing I will say is hopefully across America right now, communities are fired up. Maybe there'll be new faces, even if it's in my seat. I have no problem with that. But you just have to get people that are about servicemen of people. That's just it in a nutshell. You gotta be about the people you serve. It can't be about being self-serving. That's just it. That's what I wanted to come in on that, just to reiterate that while our numbers are low.
If I can respond to Kevin, I want to thank you for just admitting that we dropped the ball. Because not many people do that. And that's where you start, by being honest. A lot of our local officials, sometimes, they don't add up to what they speak. And we know this, and we don't see where that change can come. But when I worked for MAE, what I saw was looking at the wards that we have and getting the people who are over those wards interactive with their neighborhood associations. And through the neighborhood associations, they can reach out to even in Jackson, we have JAE, which is a branch of MAE, which is all over the state of Mississippi. They have members, teachers who we know that vote, right? But we just need to know if they're voting the right way. These people can merge together, but we are so full on silos, getting our own intermittent attention in the media that we won't join together. It's a way that it can be done. I look at how the county executive and also the city council can host block parties on information, who can just come in and give away free advice on healthcare, on job revenue. They can set this up. This is what they're supposed to be doing. So if we all think about it collectively, when we did Initiative 42, we moved the whole state of Mississippi. We know we lost that by design, because originally we won that. And that's what I'm going to tell myself. I had not seen that many people move when they move like what they moved for Initiative 42. Even here in Jackson, when we started doing grassroots around the takeover, we moved 450 people downtown in one day of organizing. And that's just by reaching out to the stakeholders in the community. They all have their personal people that they have. But if you join these people together and come to the conclusion that we're doing this to push the vote, to change our life, then we can get it done. But I don't see anybody doing that work. We're not together. We're separate. So again, vetting people is very important. And sometimes my face won't be the face that can go for Ward 1. You may have to find somebody to connect to that lives in that community. My face probably won't be the face for Ward 2. You just have to get out there, and it's work. It's hard work. But I'm not going to think, because I always want to be positive. We can move. If we move what we move for Initiative 42, we can move people to vote for the local elections.
You're muted, Dr. Kill.
Okay. I wrote a book called The Hidden Debate, and in it I talk about this whole concept of gradations of liberation, and I think that's what you're talking about, right? We've had these, and Brother Stewart is talking about that we've seen that they've had these. We seem like we're getting closer to something being free, but then we're not really free. We're getting closer to having equality, but we're really not having equality, and so therefore people become reticent about participating in the process. Right, they're reluctant to actually continue because they feel duped by it. And I think that part of the solution to that, though, is that as you're saying, in terms of getting the people, is helping people to take a single issue and follow through on that issue and become successful in that issue, and then get them to understand that issue can become issues. And then and if they have someone who they've pushed forward, right? And I think we need an organic way of developing our politicians in our community, that we select the people who become the people who run for office from the grassroots, and we train them. You know, there's a great program for women in New Jersey, and I believe any of you could participate in it. It's called Ready to Run. And it's a training program for women out of Rutgers University here in New Jersey. And I suggest you look into it. It's for women, but I've online gone to some of their programs, and they have some wonderful programs training people how to run for office. And I think that's part of the thing, is that we don't have the training, right? I've run 4 campaigns now, and so I have a lot of training for myself, but I didn't go the other route because it wasn't available to me at the time. I didn't have a whole lot of people, but I did have some people, right, who tutored me through the process, gave me some insights. But I learned a lot on the ground, knocking on doors, talking to people, and then, even though I haven't won an election, we keep fighting, right? We keep bringing the issues to the forefront, and we keep finding ways to make those things that we're talking about, of, and for the people. And so then that's how you do this thing. And I think that if we can get the people to see that they can have an issue that is successfully both legislated and brought into being, then you can gain momentum, right? They can gain trust in you. Like Brother Calvin's been in office for over 15 years. You say so now if there's an issue that's a very local issue, not your issue necessarily, and then you can get people to see that, then I think that they will be like, okay, this is a brother who is fighting for us, and we can get some other people. Because one of the things that in my campaign that I pledged to do, and I'm planning to do still, is not just be about me getting elected, but I want to help train and bring other people who are like-minded into municipal, county, and state offices, in addition to me running on a federal level, right? So then you have a cadre of folk who are ready to go and do things in different ways than we've done in the past. And that's how we really have to do it, because then if something happens to me, I'm like, hey, we got 2 or 3 people ready to take my spot, and let's go, right? Not next month, not next year, not 5 years down. I need somebody to go today. And we have somebody who's ready. And that's how we have to do it. We train them and we get them ready and we engage them in the process. And I think we can be, I know we can be successful in that way. We just have to think outside the box and do outside the box.
Go ahead, Dr. Carthen.
I was just gonna say that's exactly what BMA is doing. We actually are planning on recruiting people to actually go through a program where we train them on how to run for office. And we have people involved who have ran for office, who hold office, that can give them information. And I want to say 2 things before I run. They know who vote. They have a system called the VAN system. They know when you show up, when you don't show up for election. And so they listen to the people that they know vote. So don't think they're not keeping track of when you vote. And that's how people get purged from the voting system, by not being an active voter. I'm what you call a super voter. Every time the poll open, I don't care if it's one thing on the ballot, I show up. And that's how we all should be. And I want to leave you with this. The people that you elect for councilmen and on the school board today could very well be your next congressman, your next senator, or even your next president. So choose wisely.
Thank you, Dr. J. I really appreciate those words. And I'm sure everyone listening does. And so it's getting close to that time. So I want to say something very quickly before I let Ms. Coretta Frazier come on and say something. But after listening to everyone, you know, it sounds like what we need to do is continue to educate our communities. We need to continue. And the reason why I say continue is because some of us are out there doing it already, right? We're out there, we're educating. But in order for change to truly happen, we have to continue to educate and not give up. We have to go into these communities and we have to organize. We have to do this thing called, and Stephanie Bundle talks about it all the time, community capacity building. And like you said, we have to train those or help those or provide resources for those who want to be politicians. But not only that, we still have to continue to educate them on the importance of voting, because you will not change the United States of America in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. It took a lot of time for us to get the way it is now. It's going to take a lot of time to change it. But in order to do that, we have to continue to educate. We have to continue to organize. And with that being said, is there anything else anyone would like to say before we close out?
I just want to say thank you for inviting me, and that people can reach out to me at iRockWithDoc@gmail.com. That's our moniker we're rolling with, I Rock with Doc. So please feel free to reach out to us and let's keep moving. Let's keep doing this thing and make some powerful changes.
And hello, everybody. I just want to apologize for my tardiness, but I want to just thank all of you educators for the work that you do. I mean, it's unmatched, and it's, I know it's very heavy. I know it's so much going on, like you all are being mothers to the motherless, fathers to the fatherless. I mean, you're doing way more than what you signed up for. They don't tell you that in school or when you get ready to decide that you're going to go and be an educator, but it comes kind of with the territory. And so I just want to thank you all for the work that you do in that capacity. And now you turn around and in a whole nother capacity, trying to educate people about their most important rights. So just saying thanks to you all for the work that you do.
And Dr. Allen, I just want to thank everybody. I want to again thank everybody for coming on today. I was looking at some of the comments, and I was thinking, you know, there's a process for the change that we want to see. We talked a lot about, you know, training up young people, and I said that there's a method to that we want to train young people to come on board. A need for change in systems. You know, there's a strategy that has to be employed, a strategy of understanding what it is we're dealing with. Therefore, we must get involved, number one. And then, like Mr. Stewart said, he invites them in. He wants to invite people in so that he can share his knowledge and wisdom with them, because young people today, they have great potential. They are out there doing some things, and it has to be, you know, a process for where they are. We live in a time where young people, they want to feel invited to the table, you know, especially our table as seniors. If we can't place just judgment, we have to value what they bring. And when we value what our young people bring to the table, we can share our wisdom with them and then bring it together and reshape how the system is operating, especially in areas where it's a detriment to our people. I hope that you understand that what you see ain't all you're getting, you know, and that's for good and bad. So sometimes getting involved and looking at both sides of the table, looking at the good, taking a strong inventory, inviting young people in, educating them, and equipping them to go out through our wisdom and through our support of a collaborative effort to change how we see even politics, how we see the system working or not working. If we can come together, and the only way to come together is we got to vote folk in now so that systems can be shaped. The best way to just from the inside. So if we can get inside this thing, then we can reshape it and remold it to be more equitable and to be, you know, and to see the equality we want to see in our school system, with our water system, with our healthcare system, you know, with our communities, you know, with how all people live their lives, because we all need to be included. We can't get discouraged. Somebody's banking on the fact that we will become discouraged. But see, I think they got it wrong. For platforms such as these, for voices of young people that are out there hitting the ground, and we got to offer that support and invite them in, collaborating together. So I thank you all for coming on today. Not just educators. I know I saw somebody said middle class, honey, the poor people's campaign is on here, baby. I'm like, we ain't all, we got all backgrounds, and we need to learn to come together. Then we can create the change that we want to see for all of us.
Thank you, Stephanie. If anyone else would like to share any closing thoughts, please do so. Okay, well, I want to say to everyone that's listening, this is not our first, and this will not definitely be our last. This is something that we have been doing monthly, and we will continue to do monthly. And every month, our goal is to have new people on the panel or more people on the panel, just so we can get different sides and have different opinions that people in the audience may want to hear. So I would like to encourage you to look for the flyer for next month, because like I said before, this is not our first, and it will definitely not be our last. I want to thank everyone who came on today to talk to our audience about why it's important to vote, especially as it relates to our local elections. I would like to thank Coretta Frazier and Stephanie Bundle for allowing us the opportunity to host this presentation today, because it's a lot of people out there who really need this information, but they don't know where to get it. So thank you, Coretta Frazier. Thank you, Stephanie Bundle, for that. We greatly appreciate you. And with all that being said, thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you again next month.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. So Stephanie, that was a great presentation. At this time, you can now turn off the live video. We are finished.
That was fantastic. So I'll be turning all of that off now. You all be blessed.
Thank you.